Hi everybody, Ben DeBono here for a very special breakdown of Rings of Power. And one of the comments that I've seen, both in response to some of the material I've done and just generally out in the wild around Rings of Power, is a defense of the show that goes something like this. I get why you're upset because you're a Tolkien fan, but for me, I'm not really into Tolkien. Maybe I haven't read the books or somebody just doesn't care. So it doesn't bother me that they're, throwing the lore out the window. Don't care about the lore, so I'm good with the show. And let me tell you this, when it comes to the lore of the show, at this point, nobody cares that the show isn't following the lore, because that's not the problem. I saw a great comment on Reddit today that said something to the effect of, at first I was upset that they were screwing with Tolkien, but at this point I'd be just fine with them killing Galadriel. Like, this is Tolkien fans in episode 1 is I'm so upset about all the changes they're making, and now by episode 6, they're like, you know what? Just throw out the books, kill Galadriel, start over. We don't care. We don't care. Because the problem with the show is not the lore. The problem with the show is that it's stupid. And to illustrate that, I'm presenting Rings of Power WikiHow. Now, you know WikiHow. That's the great website where you go and learn how to attach jumper cables without electrocuting yourself and blowing up your car, which for many of us, myself, the non-mechanically minded, is a very, very useful site. Very thankful that it's out there to get us through the day. And Rings of Power, with WikiHow, it gives you all sorts of step-by-step instructions on how to do stuff. And Rings of Power has had just some spectacular moments throughout the show so far of vast stupidity where you step back and you think through the logic of how we got from point A to point B to point Z, and you realize it makes no sense whatsoever. So I thought I would highlight three of my favorite WikiHow moments. It'll make sense as we get in there. This could be the first of many videos. Who knows? That's the beauty of this show, is who knows what stupid thing they're going to come up next week. So, there may be more WikiHow videos in the future as we get idiotic, step-by-step logical leaps. But let's go through three of my favorites so far, and just so we're all on the same page, this is going to be full spoilers through episode 6. Now, you might say, Ben, you hate the show. Why do you care about spoilers? Well, number one, I want to be respectful of people who maybe are enjoying this steaming pile of shit. But also because even if you are hate watching the show, and I don't hate it, I do love it. I just love making fun of it. I think that the humor, the unintended humor, is at its best when you don't know what's coming. It's the surprise. It's the wide-eyed anticipation of not knowing what stupid twists they're going to introduce next that makes this show so delightful. So there's your spoiler warning through episode 6. If you've seen that far, you're good, or if you just don't care, you're good too. Let's get going into the first one I want to highlight for us. So, first up, how to Save the Elves by next spring. So, this is in reference to, I think it's in episode 5, when we find out that the elves need mithril or they're all going to be dead by next spring. How do they arrive at that conclusion? I don't know. The show doesn't know. Nobody knows. But these ancient people who've been around for millennia, gone by next spring unless they get mithril. So we're not going to question that. I mean, there's logical leaps on how we got there. But let's just take that as a given. So you're Gil-galad. Your elves going to be dead by next spring. You need mithril. What do? How do you stop that? Well, let's just follow the logic laid out in the show. And there's a few steps here. The first one you're going to want to do is buy in big time. Buy in big time. What are you buying into? Well, you're buying into the ancient myth that apparently nobody actually thinks is true. It's like the elves equivalent of Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox, of this story where a Silmaril got forgotten in a tree, and then an elf and a Balrog had a fight over it in a storm, and that made mithril. So that's the myth. Doesn't make any sense. When Elrond hears about it, he's like, that's not true. That's just a story. So apparently it's not believed. but you're gonna buy in big time, and you're betting it all on black. It's going, you know, you're going with that one, uh, full force. This is how you're gonna save the elves by next spring. Okay, step number two, you're gonna defund the tower project that Celebrimbor is building. So Celebrimbor's got this big plan for a tower. You're gonna defund it. Nobody goes to Celebrimbor except for Elrond. Okay? Or you might think, what does this have to do with Mithril? Well, let's just hang on. Just hang on. Okay, so that's step two. Step three. Hope to God that Elrond remembers his friend from 20 years ago. So Elrond and Durin have not spoken in 20 years, but they were friends at one point. So after you send Elrond as the sole person to help Celebrimbor build this tower by next spring, because remember that was by spring too. They're very fixated on next spring. What you're hoping is that Elrond does not do the obvious thing, which is like, look, buddies, I like 3,000 years old at this point. Don't correct me, Tolkien nerds. I'm a Tolkien nerd. See, I don't care about the lore. I'm pretty sure Elrond is not 3,000 years old. Don't care. We're gonna keep rolling with it. It's like, I don't have time for this shit. You want a tower built by next spring? Go talk to Gil-galad. It's not going to happen, Celebrimbor. You're going to have to adjust the time scale or get more people. No, no, no. You're betting that Elrond, in fact, is a moron and decides to take on this challenge. And in particular, not only that he's a moron, but that he decides the route to success is his friend, who he has not talked to in 20 years, and oh, by the way, is a member of the race that the elves don't get along with. So that's the plan. Step four, Khazad-dûm field trip. You're hoping that Elrond connects with Durin by going to Khazad-dûm, and you're also hoping that this goes well, which it doesn't. Remember when Elrond gets there, he's just like gonna get thrown out. But this is all part of Gil-galad's plan. This is like his Rube Goldberg machine for how to save the elves. So after Elrond decides he's an idiot, signs up for the plan, he's gonna go to Khazad-dûm and somehow not just get thrown out, if even let in the first place. All right. Once he's in, we move on to step five. Fingers crossed for a slip up. Okay, so the dwarves have Mithril. They're keeping it a secret. Now Elrond is there. He's at the Mithril site. And now we just have to hope somebody screws up and lets on to the fact that the Mithril from the old myth is not only one and the same with the Silmaril getting the lightning strike, but that somebody slips up and lets on that the dwarves have found it. No evidence of this whatsoever, but we're hoping this happens. You know, you wouldn't do the obvious thing, which is like, oh, the dwarves have Mithril, we need it. Let's go pound on the doors of Khazad-dûm and beg. We're all gonna die. We are all going to die unless you let us have some. For the love of God, name your price. No, no, no. That's just not dignified. This is the plan. Okay, so your fingers crossed for a slip up. And indeed, Durin does slip up. Elrond figures out there's Mithril. That leads to number six. Number six. Convince the stingiest people on Earth to share their most prized possession. Oh, the dwarves are not big fans of sharing valuable things that they've dug up, especially with the elves. This is where the show's at currently. So, you know, my next two steps, the last two ones on here, are speculative. You know, we'll see how it plays out. So we might even have to revise this WikiHow as the show goes on. There could be missing steps. It could be dumber than this. But this is where we're at currently. This seems to be a hole in the plan, but Gil-galad, I'm sure, has thought of something. And once we're through step six, and whatever subsequent steps the show pulls out of its hobbit hole, we move on to step seven. The Mithril Bath. The Mithril Bath. Because remember, the elves need to, quote, saturate themselves in Mithril, unquote. I don't know what that means, but I sure am hoping that we get a nude elf hot tub party where they're just all covered with mithril. Like they're all bare ass naked, but the mithril's covering their junk. They're like, oh, we're saved. Thank God. There was also a sidestep in here I didn't highlight of sending Galadriel away, which I mean is I can't criticize Gil-galad for that because who among us doesn't want to send Galadriel away at this point? And then step 8, the elves are saved. The elves are saved. See, that's it. 8 simple steps to save the elves. Just logical progression. Not a hole in there. Not a problem statement in that bunch. Again, it's the only reason somebody would dislike this show is because of the lore. That's it. If you don't care about Tolkien lore, yeah, none of that is going to bother you in the slightest, right? Oh, let's move on. Let's move on to the one from this week, which is how to build a home of your own. Because remember, that's what the orcs want. They want a home of their own, a place where evil can not only survive, but thrive. And this is from the episode from this week, which some are calling the greatest piece of television ever made. I mean, maybe if all you've watched up to this point in your life is reruns of Dora the Explorer with your stupid 3-year-old, that might be true. That might be true. But assuming that you've broadened your horizons beyond that, I'm skeptical of that claim. I'm skeptical of that claim. But this week, we had a lot of pieces kind of get brought together, and we got our whole picture for how you're going to make the lush, beautiful Southlands into Mordor so that you being an orc or otherwise an agent of evil, can have a home of your own. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, step 1, you're going to construct an elaborate dam system. You might think that doesn't feel very evil. I mean, maybe like you're stealing water from people, but I think the rest of the Southlands looked fine. So it's not to that. You're just making a dam. That's it. The plan will get more evil, so don't worry if this feels like it's not quite scratching that evil little itch that you have as an orc or servant of Morgoth. But there is actually a sub point on this one that's really important, which is step 1A. You need to make sure that dam you built, and specifically the gates that are going to open the water, as well as the elaborate key system, which we'll get to in just a second, are all going to be maintenance free for a few hundred years. Like, they need to just be able to sit there. Nobody's going to be able to oil these gates, and they need to be able to open perfectly on the first time. So this is a really important caveat. I always like to say in the building an evil home of your own business, it doesn't matter how good your dam is. If it's not going to hold up for the long haul, you are missing a step. Your dam is only as good as its maintenance or lack of a need for maintenance. Okay, so you got this dam, right? And it can unleash all sorts of water when the gates open. What do you do next? Well, you're going to make it operable by a single key. Okay? You might think that, why? What? That doesn't. Are dams usually opened by keys? Well, I don't know anything about dams, and so I don't think that they are. I imagine they're much more elaborate systems than that, but you are in the key business, so you're going to have a single operable key. Step 3, you're going to lose the key. This might feel like it's not the obvious step, but this is important. This is important because you're in this for the long haul. This is not an overnight project, so you're going to go ahead and lose that key. Just leave it lying around. We'll come back to it later. Number 4, you're going to draw a cryptic map sigil thing so that your people know where to go. Now, really important that the sigil that you are leaving around everywhere does not look like a map to anybody except people in Numenor who find the one scrap of paper. Okay, so there might be a little bit of a gap here for how your people are going to know it's a map, but we're gonna trust that you hired right, and you have some self starters, and they know how to figure this thing out. So you're gonna draw this, you're gonna leave it everywhere. So, key's gone. You got your map. Okay, what are you going to do next? You're going to disappear for multiple centuries. Okay, now you might be thinking, wait, my evil home of my own, I wanted that now. No, 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 no. Don't build it now. You want to do those two things. You want to build, have the key, lose it, build your map, and then you're gone. You're out. Okay, so you're just disappearing. Number 6, tunnel time, right? It's tunnel time. So after your people decode your map and they find their way to the land, now you are going to count on them digging some tunnels. Okay? Uh, you might think, where should they dig the tunnels? What do they even need to do? Like, if somebody told you, okay, I've got this plan, and the plan's really good, actually. When you turn this key, it's going to completely accomplish all of our goals, but in order for that to happen, I'm going to need you to dig some tunnels. Where do you even begin with that? Well, you're going to go to step 6A and just trust in that good old-fashioned orc sense. That good old-fashioned orc common sense is going to come through so that they build the tunnels in the right place and accomplish everything you want them to accomplish. Okay? Speaking of orc sense, this is where, you were probably a little worried back with, what was it, step 3? Let's rewind here. Yeah, step 3, lose the key. You're probably a little worried at that point, but, this is the thing. This is why you're not a planner. And this is why you're not writing a $1 billion show for Amazon, because you don't know how to think through these things. If you did, you'd know that step 7 is find the key, right? So, obviously, you're going to have to find the key. It's been laying around in the grass for a few hundred years. Hopefully it's still there. It's magic, I guess. So we'll just hand wave away anything like rusting. It is broken, not ideal, but it's good enough. It's good enough for what we need it to do. What do we need it to do? We need it to open the dam. Okay? So it's going to open the dam. And you think, well, what if we just broke the gates? We just forget the whole key business. Damn it, you need the key. Okay, this is a non-negotiable. You need the key. It is there. It's part of the plan. We built those gates for a reason. They've been working for 300 years. You know how hard it is to keep a key mechanism and an elaborate gate system working for 300 years? I don't want to hear a damn thing about how you just want to break the gates yourself. No, you need the key. Open the dam. All right, what happens then? Well, you're done. Instant home. Instant home. You've got a home of your own. Fantastic. Simple as pie. Nine easy steps to, it does take a 500-ish years, but, couldn't be simpler. There is one important note, which is that you're going to need some new followers because between steps 8 and 9, there's going to be a violent eruption that is going to Pompeii everybody's asses. Okay, so all of your followers are going to be dead. Including the ones who found the key. I mean, look, nobody likes to hurt your workers. We all like to reward a job well done, but you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. So you're gonna need some new orcs when all this is done. But when you find them, you've got the place for them now. Okay, and one more, and this one's you're thinking these are really elaborate. This one is actually going to show you that look, not everything on this show is this convoluted Rube Goldberg system. Sometimes the steps for things happening are actually really straightforward. It doesn't take this long. Maybe I'm being hard on the show. It doesn't all have to be this convoluted, and indeed it's not. Especially when you want to become king. When you want to become king, this is actually really straightforward. So just a couple of steps here. Number 1, you're going to find a backwater town with no king. This is really important, actually. If you find a backwater town and you get there and you think, perfect, and there's already a king, not going to work. You need one with no king. Okay? So you've done that. Then when they ask you if you're the king, you say yes. Now you might think, I bet step 3 is going to be something like, well, they're going to demand proof, right? or in a blood sample, whatever. No, actually, step 3, you're done. You just get to rule your dozens of subjects. That's it. This is actually step 2 is the really important part. It's the saying yes. If they ask you if you're the king and you get a little stage fright, maybe, that's not going to do it. You've got to just really, lots of confidence. Yes, I am the king. Now you're in charge of literally dozens of people. Actually, probably fewer than that once they all recover from their, or don't recover from their battle wounds. Oh, so that's it. I mean, that's Rings of Power logic for you. It's airtight, you know. Again, like the only reason I can envision anyone disliking the show is because they're just a bunch of Tolkien nerds who can't accept a few minor changes. There's nothing else wrong with the show. It's not like if this was just a generic fantasy. You can see here all their logic, their writing is rock solid. There's not a single thing to criticize in the show unless you're just a hater or a racist. One of those two. Uh, and here we're not haters or racists. We're big fans of parsing logic, and I hope that this instructional video has been useful to you. And I hope even more that future episodes of Rings of Power will also give us valuable instructions uh, so we can, live our best life, make our homes, become king, all that shit. All right, guys. Bendy Bono. Be back with more from this dumpster fire next week.